got a time to join and be here and be on time. And just a reminder, parents, we are broadcasting on YouTube, and this will be recorded, inshallah. So we will have a copy available. And it's great to have your children join via camera. It does improve their participation. And just know that we are recording as well, inshallah. But if you can switch your cameras on, young people, that would be amazing. It makes, it allows us to be able to see you, and it allows you to be able to know that we're watching you and you're concentrating rather than playing on your phone
mashallah.
or doing something else in the background. So it's great to have you all here, alhamdulillah. And we had an epic session yesterday. It was great, mashallah. So we're going to have another part, or our second part, of the story and the journey of the Prophet ﷺ to Masjid Al Aqsa. And yesterday we got to the point where he got to the highest heaven. And now we're going to hopefully hear what happened when he spoke to Allah. So that's going to be exciting. And then we're going to hear maybe also what happened after he returned. And Hannah, that's an amazing scarf you got on there. I don't know what Ustad was saying.
How did she change it so quickly?
What do you mean? Amazing. She always had it. It was there all the time, Ustad. You weren't paying attention.
I must have been imagining it. MashaAllah. Yeah. I see Rayan and Shakil chilling out there, MashaAllah, with their bookcase.
There you go. And we've got Abu Bakr and Umar there, and Yumna and Abdul and Yusuf and Adam and many others. And Nasuha's here and Nafisa's here.
MashaAllah.
And Safwan here as well, MashaAllah. And Adam's here. Great to have you all here, mashallah. Amazing, amazing, really brilliant. And parents, you have an opportunity to share the khair. Think about who you know who isn't on the call. Maybe you've got cousins or relatives, or your other children are not here right now, or you've got friends of your children that are maybe on a WhatsApp group or something. You can let them know, send them that Zoom link, have them join the live session, inshallah, so they can interact and benefit and really learn about the story, as well as benefit from the opportunity of having some fun together, inshallah. So, Ustad Sahal, how are you doing today? Mashallah, good to have you here.
Very good, inshallah. Very excited to be back for the second part of this series. I can see it's kicking off with Rayan and Shakil. Looks like there's blows happening there. Probably who's going to sit in the middle. Oh, mashallah. And I can see Yusuf, mashallah, in his computer chair, chilling. And yes, it's Layan back in space. He returned to Earth shortly yesterday, but he's decided he's going back to space again. And Uwais and Muhammad. Uwais looks like he's done Umrah, and he's now just going back up to space, mashallah. And Nusayba, very sensible, mashallah. Okay, shall we start, Ustad Akhtar?
Yes, we should. Jazakallah khair. And we'll start. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Welcome, everyone. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for joining us on this, the second part of the story of the Prophet ﷺ journey to Masjid Al Aqsa and his return. Just a reminder, please do keep yourself on mute for the session. We will have an opportunity for you to ask some questions and interact with us, etc. and so on. You'll have a quiz at the end. We'll open up the chat facilities for you to be able to interact with us. And when we do, you can answer questions related to that, inshallah. But Ustad, we're very excited about today's session. So we're going to get straight into it. Over to you, inshallah.
Okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah. As-salatu was-salam ala rasulillah, Nabiyyina Muhammad. وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Okay, so we're going to, inshallah, go back to the PowerPoint. To start after, do we have the PowerPoint there?
Yeah, we do. Just 10 seconds of your time. Just get that
loaded. Yeah. So now we ended the session yesterday at the beginning of the Mi'raj, when the Prophet ﷺ is going through the skies. And at each level of the sky, each limit, he sees a different prophet, and he speaks to those prophets, and all of those prophets describe their belief in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And I did promise you that we will speak about the significance of each one of those prophets to the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Okay, if we go to the next slide. Inshallah, this whole series is about Masjid Al Aqsa and Palestine. And although we're going to speak about the Prophet ﷺ's Isra wal Mi'raj, we are going to speak about some history, some politics as well, because you can't just ignore the situation which is currently happening. Now, one of the things which people often talk about and try and accuse the Palestinians of is that, well, actually your country never existed, that you guys are just kind of nomads wandering around. And a famous saying is, Palestine was a land without a people, a land without a people. Meaning when Israel was established, basically there was really nobody living there, and it was derelict and empty. And Israel came into that land and developed it and turned it into a modern country. And often even leaders of countries, they talk about Israel making the land bloom. Okay, there was kind of like a desert. And, Israel came and took over and made it a special place. And this is actually a complete lie and a distortion of history. So what I've got for you there is a picture of some of the coins from Palestine from 1927 right up to 1946. Of course, in 1948, Israel is established, and that kind of coin is not produced anymore. But these are some of the old coins which date back a long time to the original country of Palestine. Before 1948, there is no Israel. Okay, that whole area is known universally across the world as Palestine. And whether you look at the coins or whether you look at the notes, you will always see the name Palestine. Okay, Ustad, shall we go to the next slide?
Yes.
Now, these are some very old pictures. The picture at the bottom is actually Qubbat al-Sakhra. So, I told you about the Dome of the Rock. If you look at that rock there, that is the actual rock which they say the Prophet ﷺ went up to the heavens from. So that is Qubbat al-Sakhra. And there's actually a website, you can easily Google it, and it shows you like up around 70 pictures, 70, from the old Ottoman Empire when Palestine was a country within the Ottoman Empire. And it's really fascinating because you see Jewish people in their traditional dress, you see Muslims in their traditional dress, you see Christians in their traditional dress, but they clearly are all Arabs, and they clearly have a common culture, which is the Palestinian culture. And it's not true that the whole place was desert. It was very rich in terms of natural resources, fresh water sources, herbs. It was a poor country. There's no doubt about that. But the rates of literacy and people learning to read and write were very high. And people had a very strong attachment to their land. They had some very special dishes, which we still eat till today, like kanafa and like maqluba and so many other famous Palestinian dishes. So this was a thriving country, a thriving culture, had its own identity, had its own dialects, had its own style and culture. So you can't just wipe out a country from history as if it never, ever existed. Okay, Ustad, let's move on. Okay, I did promise you we'd speak about the prophets which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ saw when he went through the different levels of the skies. Now, just to emphasize, the entire universe, the huge universe beyond our imagination, all of that is still part of as-samawati al-ula, the first sky. So our world, the planet Earth, it's part of the solar system with the huge, gigantic sun, and that is part of the Milky Way, which is our galaxy, and that galaxy is part of infinite number of galaxies which make up our Milky Way. And all of those galaxies, they make up our observable universe. All of that is still as-samawati al-ula. We don't know how far it goes on for. And then past that is the second sky, and then the third, and then the fourth, and then the fifth, and then the sixth, and then the seventh. And the Prophet ﷺ went through all these levels. And no human being, no matter how big their spaceship, will ever reach anywhere near where the Prophet ﷺ reached. The Prophet ﷺ went through the limits of the first sky to the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. We will only ever be able to travel within our universe. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ saw Adam on the first level. Okay, we've got a couple of hands up. Let me finish this section, and then we'll take your questions, because I know it's important, and I want to give the young people a chance to speak. So just hold your thoughts. So Prophet Adam alayhi salam, he met the Prophet Adam. The Prophet Adam gave his salam to the Prophet ﷺ and stated his belief in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Now, the Prophet Adam used to live in Jannah, okay, was close to the angels and close to Allah, and then he made a mistake, just a mistake, and he was sent down from Jannah to this world. But Prophet Adam, after his death, he returns back to Jannah. This is a very important message for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ very shortly is going to be forced out of Makkah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving him a very important message, that you will come back to your home, just like Prophet Adam came back to his home in Jannah. Now, Prophet Yahya and Prophet Isa were contemporaries. They lived at the same time. Prophet Yahya was the son of Prophet Zakaria. Prophet Yahya and Prophet Isa alayhi salam, they were persecuted and hunted down by Banu Israel. And in fact, Prophet Yahya was killed by Banu Israel. So this is a warning to the Prophet ﷺ, that when he goes to Medina, he will find enmity. Okay, he will find people who will try and harm him and even try and kill him from Banu Israel. Now he meets Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam in the third level, and Prophet Yusuf's story is very important to the Prophet ﷺ. It's actually the only surah of the Quran which has one full story only. Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, his brothers actually tried to kill him. Okay, they beat him almost to death and threw him down the well to get rid of him. But at the end of the story, the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam, they ask for his forgiveness. And Prophet Yusuf, when he is the leader of the country, he says, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm yaghfirullahu lakum." There is no blame on you today. There's no blame on you today. May Allah forgive you all. And this is a very important message for the Prophet ﷺ. His brothers or his cousins or his relatives, we could say, not his actual brothers, but his brothers in terms of his family and his kind of tribe, they turned on the Prophet ﷺ, didn't they? For 13 years in Makkah, they're torturing him. And then for another 6 years in Medina, they're trying to fight battles against him. But at the end of all of this, in Fathu Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ comes into Makkah with his head lowered to the extent he's reaching the neck of the camel. And he says exactly what Yusuf said to all the people in Makkah who had tortured him, persecuted him, responsible for the deaths of his companions. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm yaghfirullahu lakum." So this is a very important message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Prophet ﷺ, to forgive his enemies. Prophet Idris, there's not much known about Prophet Idris except in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, we raised him to a very high level. So this is a message for the Prophet ﷺ, that Allah will raise him to a very high level. In the fifth level, he met the Prophet Harun alayhi salam. Prophet Harun used to actually be hated by his people, Banu Israel, and then they loved him. That is a message that even though his people are turning against him and hating him, one day they will love and respect him. Now, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he suffered so much from the annoying and the harm caused to him by Banu Israel. This is a message for the Prophet ﷺ, that your people, especially Banu Israel, will harm you a lot, so be patient. And Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Prophet ﷺ meets him on the last level. And this is very important for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, because the Prophet ﷺ sees Ibrahim, and Ibrahim is the symbol of Hajj and the Kaaba. And this is a message for the Prophet ﷺ, that he will return to Makkah one day and he will make Hajj and he will make Umrah. So all of these prophets are chosen to give a very special message to the Prophet ﷺ. They don't say it, They just give their salam and they describe their belief in the Prophet ﷺ. But the significance of them being chosen to be at each of these levels is very important. Okay, Ustad Akhtar, we got so many hands up. Shall we take these questions? Because I don't want the young people to be so nervous and so agitated that I've got something I've got to ask. So shall we hear some of their questions?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with Hannah. Come off mute. Hannah, what's your question, please?
How many prophets did he meet?
So altogether, 8 prophets in the different levels of the skies, 8 prophets. But in the Isra, in Masjid Al Aqsa, he led all the prophets in prayer, which I believe in total is 124,000. So even prophets which we don't know who they are, we never told their names, they belong to past nations which are now extinct. All of those prophets, the Prophet ﷺ saw them, met them, and led them in prayer. Very good question.
Okay, let's go to Rayan and Shakil. What's your question, please?
So is the universe part of the first heaven, or is it
part of the first sky only?
So are we part of the sky?
Yeah, but we don't know the limit. We don't know the limit of the universe. It's always expanding. So what we see might just be a tiny fraction of the first sky.
Okay, very good. Let's hear from Adam.
I always thought that it was Yahya alayhi salam that he was raised to the heavens, not that he was killed.
That's Isa. Isa was raised to the heavens. Prophet Yahya was killed by Banu Israel. You might have the two confused. Yahya is John, and Isa alayhi salam is Jesus. Okay? Okay, next question.
Okay, so let's go to Abdul Ahad. Go ahead, Abdul Ahad, accept the prompt to unmute.
Is Israel now the same Bani Israel from before?
Oh, very, very good question. Very good question, mashallah. Is Israel the same as Banu Israel from before? And the answer is no. So Banu Israel are Arab Jews, okay? They have a very ancient history which goes back to which actually it's not 100% clear where they originate from, but they would have been somewhere from Asham, okay, region, the Syria, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, that kind of area. They would have been from there, and they went to Medina because they were expecting the final prophet to come from there. So their holy books describe a place where the final prophet will come, and they describe it as having date palms and having lava fields, extinct lava fields. The only two cities that fit that description are Medina and Khaybar, which is outside Medina. So the Jewish tribes, some went to Medina and some went to Khaybar. So these are Arab Jews. Okay, most Israelis are of European origin. Okay, and they would largely come from Russia, Poland, Eastern Europe. Some have come from America, obviously, or the UK, but even then they originate from Eastern Europe. There are some genealogy studies which have been done, and they think, and we can never be 100% sure, that these people actually originate from Central Asia. They were Jewish converts from Central Asia. So they are different people, but I don't think it makes much of a difference. It doesn't make a huge deal of difference. What's going on is wrong, and whether they are from Banu Israel, the original Arab Jews, or whether they are European Jews, what's happening is still wrong. And it's actually got nothing to do with religion. It's more about stealing land, and it's about genocide and removing the people who are indigenous to that area. Okay, very good question.
All right, we've got more hands come up than before, so start the shorter answers if you can.
Okay.
Over to Dawood and Musa. Dawood, Musa, accept the prompt.
Is Israel trying to steal Palestine land because of oil?
No, not because of oil. There is no oil that I'm aware of in Palestine. There is gas deposits off Gaza, and they may well be very much interested in that. But Zionism is the belief that the Jewish people should have their own homeland. So they want their own homeland. The problem is they've chosen a country where there's already existing people. You know, if they had chosen a country which didn't have people, or the people were happy to hand over their country to Zionists, then that would be fine. But they've chosen a place where people already live. And the only way you can get rid of them is to kill them or to force them out the country. Okay, next question. Let's see if we can quickly get through these questions and get back to the story.
Yeah, Adam, go ahead, Adam.
I only just joined, so what are you guys talking about?
That's not a fair question, Adam. You're late. But
Don't
we're
worry,
talking
Adam.
about
Don't
the
worry.
story.
We're going to get back to the story. Yeah. Don't
Yeah.
worry. You stick with us. We're talking about the Premier League title race. Okay.
All right, let's
go.
go to Ismahan. Ismahan, accept the prompt to unmute. Very quickly. Not ready? Okay, let's go over to Ariana and Ibrahim. Go ahead.
So in the Quran, does it only mention like a certain amount of prophets or all of the prophets?
Very good question. The Quran only mentions a certain amount of prophets. Is it 25? I can't remember exactly. Yeah. Is it 25, Ustad Akhtar?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Quran only mentions 25 prophets, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent throughout history from the time of Adam around 124,000 prophets. I better double check the 124,000 prophets.
Yeah, 124,000 is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, good. So there's so many prophets we don't even know their names, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them. Allah only told us certain prophets, certainly the 5 greatest prophets, and other prophets whose lives have a very important lesson for us. Okay.
Good. Let's go over to Lana. Go ahead, Lana.
Why did Allah only tell us some of the prophets' names and not all of them?
Because Allah only tells us in the Quran what we need to know. Yeah, the Quran is not a textbook for history, so it won't have all the dates and all the names. Allah only tells us the most important things that we need to know, and that's Allah's mercy. Imagine the Quran had like everything that's ever happened, all the history. It'd be impossible to read, impossible to memorize. So Allah tells us everything we need to know, which is important.
Okay, let's go over to Abu Bakr and Umar.
Oh.
What's your question, please? Can you say that again, please? Okay, can't hear you, so we're just going to move on and we'll come back to you later, inshallah. Go over to Awais and Muhammad. Go ahead, Awais or Muhammad. What's your question, please?
Why are Israel attacking Palestine?
Why is Israel attacking Palestine? It's the same reason that Europeans attacked the Americas. It's the same reason why Europeans attacked. It's the same reason why the Europeans attacked the native Indians in America. Same reason why the Europeans attacked Aborigines in Australia. It's about stealing land and resources. It's simple as that, unfortunately. Okay.
Very clear. Zayan and Ayan, accept the prompt to unmute, please.
Assalamualaikum. Do you know why Bani Israel killed Yahya?
Oh, so why did Bani Israel kill Yahya? Whenever Banu Israel were not happy with the message of a prophet and they did not want to change, they used to just kill them. So this is a very negative quality in the history of Banu Israel. Whenever they were not happy with the prophet, they would just try and kill him, because they were so arrogant and so proud that sometimes they didn't want to change their ways. So they thought, let's just kill the prophet.
Okay, we're going to just take one more question, and then the rest of them we're gonna take after at the end, inshallah. So let's just hear from Nasuha and Nafisa. What's your question, please?
Assalamualaikum.
Assalam.
Is it true that Israel is trying to take over the land and killing the Palestinians? Is it because they don't like the Muslims?
It's a good question. Definitely, there is some hatred of Muslims in Israel. Okay, you can see that from the way they portray Muslims and Palestinians in the news, in their news. But don't forget, they're also killing Christian Palestinians as well. So this is not really about religion. Okay, Muslims and Jews have lived quite peacefully for a long time, centuries and centuries. This is about stealing their land, and any way possible stealing their land. And it doesn't really matter to them whether it's Christians or Muslims. Churches have been blown up, mosques have been blown up, hospitals belonging to Christians have been blown up, hospitals belonging to Muslim charities have been blown up, schools belonging to the UN have been blown up. It's about destroying people's lives and taking over the land. It doesn't really matter what religion they are.
Okay, good.
Okay. Can we go back to the story you started?
Yeah, and those of you with questions, just keep them, remember them, and then at the end we're going to have time for some questions, inshallah.
Okay.
Okay, back to the slides.
Okay, Bismillah. So we were on, yes, yeah. So next one, yes. So now, actually, if we can go back one step, the Prophet ﷺ, when he meets Ibrahim alayhi salam, he sees that Ibrahim alayhi salam is surrounded by children in a special home. And when the Prophet ﷺ asks who these are the children who died before reaching the age of maturity, and they are being looked after by Ibrahim alayhi salam, which is very comforting for us to know, especially if young people pass away. It can be very distressing for us. But Ibrahim alayhi salam is looking after these children. That's very comforting for us to know. You might not realize this, but the Prophet ﷺ had 7 children, and 6 of them he had to bury because they passed away in his life. If you ever have seen a parent whose child passes away, they're never the same. You know, the grief is so much, the sorrow and the sadness is so much. But the Prophet ﷺ, 6 of his 7 children passed away, and only 1 of his children lived past the Prophet ﷺ for 6 months, and that is Fatima radiallahu anha. Okay. And Prophet Ibrahim, he has a longer conversation with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Don't forget that Prophet Ibrahim made dua for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to come, and that is in Surah Al-Baqarah, and we spoke about this before. So Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam has a conversation with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And Prophet Ibrahim actually says, give my salam to your ummah. Give my salam to your ummah. And we spoke about this before, that every prayer, we give salam back to the Prophet Ibrahim, don't we? We say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, kama sallayta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. So this is giving salam back to the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam didn't ask about how are the Muslims doing, how are you doing, I heard your wife died, I heard your uncle died, you are suffering so much. Prophet Ibrahim didn't speak about that at all. Prophet Ibrahim said one message for the Muslim ummah. He said to the Prophet ﷺ, give salam to your ummah from me and tell them that Jannah is kind of, its soil is very fertile and it's empty. You need to plant your trees in Jannah. And you plant your trees in Jannah, which are trees of solid gold and silver. You plant them by saying Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. These 5 phrases, you should say them as much as you can. And every time you say them, a tree of solid gold and silver is planted for you in Jannah. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Okay, next slide, Ustad Akhtar. So the Prophet ﷺ now is in Jannah, and he can see the scenes of Jannah, paradise. And he sees the soil is made of musk. Now, we don't use kind of, we use kind of perfume bottles now, right? But musk is a kind of brilliant white substance, yeah, where, it actually comes from deer. And it has a beautiful smell. And he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sees that the actual soil of Jannah is made from this musk. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees rivers of paradise, 4 huge rivers. a river of very sweet water, a river of honey, a river of brilliant white milk, and a river of wine, which doesn't cause someone to go crazy and lose their mind and have a hangover. So the Prophet ﷺ sees these 4 brilliant rivers, and he sees the banks of these rivers are made of pearls, brilliant pearls. And there's cups where you can just take a scoop and drink as much as you want. And these drinks will be so amazing, like nothing you tasted in this world. So the Prophet ﷺ is shown the scenes of Jannah. And he's also shown some of the scenes of Jahannam. And when the Prophet ﷺ goes further, he comes to a limit. And this limit is known as Sidratul Muntaha, the furthest loped tree. It's a special type of tree which is in Jannah. And the Prophet ﷺ described it as so huge that it would take hundreds of years for a horse to gallop across the shade of this tree. And the Prophet ﷺ describes its leaves as having colors which he's not seen in this world before. So the Prophet ﷺ couldn't describe those colors because he's not seen those colors before. They're not like the spectrum of colors we have in this world. And at this point, Jibreel alayhi salam said, I cannot go any further. This was the limit of how far Jibreel could go. And the Prophet ﷺ went further. But Jibreel, the Prophet ﷺ saw him in his angelic form with over 600 wings covering the horizon. So now the Prophet ﷺ goes further and he goes alone. He cannot go with any human being. But before that, he actually hears footsteps in Jannah. Footsteps of another man, footsteps of another companion. Now, using the chat facility, does anybody know whose footsteps the Prophet ﷺ heard in Jannah? We heard a lot of people speaking, but maybe some people are shy. So let's see in the chat facility. Yes, excellent. Zakaria and Samir and Lana. The Prophet ﷺ heard the footsteps of Bilal radiallahu anhu. He heard footsteps and he asked the angels, whose footsteps are these? Whose footsteps can I hear in Jannah? And it was actually the Bilal radiallahu anhu, one of the companions who used to make the adhan. And when the Prophet ﷺ returned, he actually asked Bilal, what do you do that I heard your footsteps in Jannah? And Bilal said, I don't do anything special, but whenever I make wudu, okay, whenever I make wudu, I pray 2 rak'ah, just 2 rak'ah, or I pray as much, what he actually said is, I pray as much as Allah has written for me, which means however much I've got energy for, 2 rak'ah, 4 rak'ah, 6 rak'ah, I pray that. Now we call that wudu nawafil, yeah, when you just make wudu and you pray 2 rak'ah. Even if you're praying sunnah for fajr, or even if you're praying sunnah for dhuhr, yeah, make the intention that you're praying sunnah and you got the intention of praying wudu nawafil, because the Prophet ﷺ heard Bilal's footsteps in Jannah just from this one action. So now the Prophet ﷺ goes further than any created being, further than subhanAllah, I forgot to mention something so important. If we go to the next slide. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ did not see the Kaaba in Jannah, but he saw a version of the Kaaba which has existed a long time before the Kaaba and will exist a long time after the Kaaba. And that's called Baytul Ma'mur, Baytul Ma'mur. Directly above the Kaaba, in the heavens, in Jannah itself, there is a place called Baytul Ma'mur, which is the version of the Kaaba which is in the heavens. And every day, 70,000 angels come through and they make tawaf, they go around Baytul Ma'mur and they leave and they never come back again. So this is at the beginning of their creation. They are created, they make tawaf 7 times and then they leave every day. So the Prophet ﷺ actually witnessed this. And then he went further until he was in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So can we go to the next slide? Start after. Now, when he was in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah spoke to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahu Akbar. This is something so unique and so amazing. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Musa alayhi salam as well. But while Musa was in this world, Allah spoke to Musa through the burning bush, and Allah spoke to Musa in Mount Tur, and Allah spoke to Musa in the desert, but never has any prophet had the privilege and the honor to go and meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and speak to him in Jannah itself. So the Prophet ﷺ goes in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the scholars of Islam do disagree. Did the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ see Allah? And most scholars say no. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not see Allah. What the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ saw was the veil of light, the hijab al-Noor, the veil of light which is in front of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not show himself to his universe until the hereafter. Because if he was to show himself, the light of Allah's glory would destroy the entire universe. It would just be wiped out completely. Everything would cease to exist. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects the universe by putting a veil in front of himself, and that veil is the veil of light. That is the same light which was shown, just a bit of that light was shown to a mountain in the time of Musa alayhi salam, and the mountain collapsed. It was destroyed. So now the Prophet ﷺ is in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And three important things happen, and it's very important you remember these three things, okay? So first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, how many prayers is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered to pray when he meets Allah? Can you use the chat facility if you know already? How many prayers? Wow, 50. You guys know your stuff. 50 prayers a day. 50. Can you imagine that? 50 prayers a day. So let's say there's 24 hours, not let's say there is 24 hours in a day, right? And if we say 7 to 8 of those hours is sleeping, okay, so now we're down to about, say, what, 16 hours? Yeah, 16 hours. If we were praying 50 times a day, yeah, we would have to be praying at least 3 prayers every hour, more than that, yeah? At least 3 prayers every hour. So by the time this Qur'an story time finishes, we would have had to stop 3 times to pray our salah. Allahu Akbar. Can you imagine that? Life would be so difficult, okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the Prophet ﷺ with 50 prayers for the whole Muslim ummah. 50 prayers a day. Okay, the second thing, Allah orders the Prophet ﷺ, the second thing which Allah promises the Prophet ﷺ is that his ummah, if they do not associate any partners with Allah in worship, Allah will forgive them. Allah will forgive their major sins. Okay, so this is the promise of forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the whole Muslim ummah, providing they do not associate partners with Allah. Okay, and the third thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to the Prophet ﷺ is the last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, which we should read before we go to sleep. Okay. Now, this amazing conversation which must have happened between Allah and the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ now is on his way back to this world, and he's heading back towards the Lot tree, and he comes across Musa alayhi salam. Can you see how many times the Prophet ﷺ has seen Musa in this journey? He saw him praying in his grave when he was in Isra. He saw him at Masjid Al Aqsa. He saw him in the 6th level of Jannah, and now he's seen him in Jannah itself. So can you see how important Musa alayhi salam is to Islam? Now Musa alayhi salam says, go back to Allah. There is no way your people will be able to handle 50 prayers a day. Go back to Allah and ask for a reduction. I know people better than you. Musa alayhi salam had so much experience in seeing how difficult people could be. So the Prophet ﷺ goes back to Allah and asks for a reduction, and Allah reduces the number of prayers. And then the Prophet ﷺ goes back again, and Musa stops him again and says, no, go back to Allah and ask for more reduction. I know the people better than you. They're not going to be able to cope with it. So now Prophet ﷺ is going back to Allah, asking for a reduction, and then Again, seeing Musa for a third time. And Musa says, go back again to Allah and ask for another reduction. I know people better than you. They're not going to be able to cope with this. And this keeps on happening over and over again until Allah reduces the prayer down to 5 times only. And that is the prayer which we perform today. Okay, never think it's so difficult to perform your 5 daily prayers. I can't do it. I'm in school. I got this, I got that. I got club, I got homework. You know, I want to watch TV. I want to go online on my screen. Never think like that. Yeah, the original prayer was 50 times a day. We would have to be praying 3 times every hour minimum. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reduced from His mercy from 50 prayers to 5 prayers. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said that the reward of the 5 prayers will be 50 prayers. Allahu Akbar. The reward for praying 5 prayers will actually be 50 prayers. Allah will multiply the reward by a minimum of 10. And that's not just for salah and prayers, it's actually for all your good deeds. Okay, all your good deeds are multiplied by a minimum of 10, up to 700 times, depending on how genuine you are, how sincere you are, and you do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, I think last slide, Ustad Akhtar. These are the last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, which were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون. Try and memorize these 2 surahs, these 2 verses, sorry. It's only about half a page. And the Prophet ﷺ says, whoever reads this before they go to sleep, that it will be enough for them. What that means, it will be counted as enough for them for Qiyam al-Layl, as if they prayed Tahajjud. It will be enough to protect them at night, in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guard them because of reciting these 2 verses. There's so many rewards for this that the Prophet ﷺ left it blank. Yeah, it will be enough for them, meaning it will cover everything. So we should try and memorize these 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah and read them before we go to sleep. If you need to use a Quran to read them before you go to sleep, no problem. But get in the habit of trying to memorize it. So even if you haven't got your Quran, you'll be able to recite it before you go to sleep. Inshallah ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ then returned to Jerusalem. He took his animal, the buraq, and was returned back to Mecca. And when he came back to Mecca in the morning, he was looking a bit worried because this incredible journey, he's got to now describe it to people. And Abu Jahl was going past, and he said, Abu Jahl saw the Prophet ﷺ a bit worried, and he sensed there was an opportunity here. And he said, Hal fi shay, anything the matter, any news? And the Prophet ﷺ described the journey from Mecca to Jerusalem. And Abu Jahl started roaring with laughter. And he called all the people of Mecca, look what this man is saying. But the first person he went to is Abu Bakr. And he said to Abu Bakr, did you hear what your friend said? And Abu Bakr said, what did he say? And he said, he went from Mecca to Jerusalem in part of a night. And Abu Bakr said, did he actually say that? And Abu Jahl said, yes. And Abu Bakr said, I believe in him. And I believe something greater, that revelation comes from the 7 heavens down to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see, this journey is so amazing, isn't it? But there's something more amazing, which is the Qur'an. Yeah, the Qur'an directly came from Allah to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam over a period of 23 years. And from that day on, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was known as As-Siddiq. Abu Bakr was known as As-Siddiq, which actually means not just the truthful one, but the one who verifies the truth, the one who proves others to be true. That from that day on, he was known as As-Siddiq. Now, it's very difficult for some of the new Muslims to actually believe, this miracle. So the Prophet ﷺ described, his journey from Mecca to Jerusalem. He described some of the places where the camels were lost. And he described what Masjid Al Aqsa was like, even though he had never been there in his adult life. And the Prophet ﷺ on the way had uncovered some of their containers of the Bedouins and had drunk some water to prove that he was actually there. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll stop here. Ustad Akhtar, is it time for the quiz yet?
It certainly is, inshallah. I know some of you have got questions and you've got your hands raised. So we're going to take those questions at the end after the quiz time. So I want to see your fingers now. See your fingers ready, ready to press those buttons. Let's see if you're awake and still with us. Very good. Okay, good. Everybody's with us now. So get ready. Have a look at your screens, inshallah. Let's see if we can get the first question up for day 2 of our Qur'an story time. And here's question number 1 coming up on your screen right now. So the question is, which verses of the Quran were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Miraj? Was it A, Ayatul Kursi, B, Suratul Ikhlas, C, the last 2 verses of Suratul Baqarah, or D, Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas? So which verses? You should remember this was just the last slide we showed you there. Which 2 verses were
Don't give any
shown?
clues, Ustad. You're giving too many clues.
I need them to win. I need them all to be like, yeah, I need them all to get it right, inshallah. So which 2 verses or which verses were revealed? Was it A, Ayatul Kursi, B, Suratul Ikhlas, C, the last 2 verses of Suratul Baqarah, or D, Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas? We've had most of you reply. We'll give you another 3 seconds. If you don't know, take a guess. Try A, B, C, or D. Those of you on YouTube, type in the chat box A, B, C, or D. And Ustad, let's have a look at the results. Here they are.
Oh, very high, mashallah. The correct answer is last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. Well done. That's 94%. Very high, Ustad Akhtar.
Yeah, very good. Well done. Well done for getting that right. Excellent. Mashallah. Let's go to question number 2. So question number 2 is now on your screen. Allah blessed the Muslim Ummah with a promise that the reward for 5 prayers would be equal to how many prayers? Was it 10 prayers? Was it B, 20 prayers? C, 30 prayers? 4, 40 prayers? Or 5, 50 prayers? Was it A, 10 prayers? B, 20 prayers? C, 30 prayers? D, 40 prayers? Or E, 50 prayers? So have a look at that and answer the question. See what you want to do. Those of you on YouTube, you can type your answer in the chat box as well, inshallah. A, B, C, or D, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Last 4 seconds before we close the poll. Okay, and let's have a look at the results. And here we are, Ustad.
Oh, mashallah. Very high score. Very high score. Just my whole camera there fell. 97%. That's huge, Ustad Akhtar. Mashallah. We should never miss a single prayer. Yeah, really try and remember that. Whether you're out and about, whether you're in school, whether you're watching something on the TV or on your screen, whenever it comes to prayer time, especially at the beginning of the prayer time, you should never ever miss your obligatory prayers.
Yeah, excellent. Well done. So, mashallah, 77 of you got that right answer. Let's see how you do for question number 3. Who was the first Quraysh leader to mock the Prophet ﷺ about his miraculous journey? Was it Abu Sufyan? Was it Abu Jahl? Was it C, Abu Lahab? Or was it D, Al-Walid ibn Mughira? So, who was the one that mocked the Prophet ﷺ? Oh, we got you on this one, I think, Ustad. I think we might be...
It's a bit of a tough one.
Yeah, so was it A, Abu Sufyan, B, Abu Jahl, C, Abu Lahab, or was it D, Al-Walid ibn Mughira? Which one of those 4, A, B, C, or D? They're a bit slow in putting their votes together.
They're thinking about it.
Yeah.
They got their thinking hats on.
Let's see what you come up with. A, B, C, or D. Those of you on YouTube, you can type your chat in there as well. Got another 3 seconds. So whatever, if you don't know, just type an answer. Always give it a go. Always try and guess if you don't know. Okay, and let's have a look or start at the results. Here we go.
Oh, mashallah. Very good. Very good. We've got the correct answer is Abu Jahl. Okay, so 68%, a little bit lower this time. I did mention it, but I mentioned it very quickly. It was Abu Jahl. He's one of the uncles of the Prophet ﷺ who was one of his fiercest enemies. Okay, one of his fiercest enemies. And he was the one who kind of, until he was killed at the Battle of Badr, he was the one who was always persecuting the Prophet ﷺ, attacking the Prophet ﷺ. So well done, those of you who got it right.
Yeah, well done. 24% of you said Abu Lahab, close, but the correct answer was Abu Jahl. Okay, so let's see how you do for question number 4. Let's find day 2, question number 4. Here we go. And it is, which companion stepped forward to declare his belief in the Prophet ﷺ's night journey? Was it Abu Bakr? A. Was it B. Umar? Was it C. Uthman? Or was it D. Ali radiallahu an? Which companion stepped forward to declare his belief in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's night journey? Was it A. Abu Bakr, B. Umar, C. Uthman, or D. Ali radiallahu an? I think they've done much better on this answer, Ustad. Lots of them have answered already.
Very good.
Another
Very
2
good.
or 3 seconds. And we're going to close it now. So quickly put your answer A, B, C, or D. And let's share the results. So start.
Oh, very good. Abu Bakr, 91%. Well done. That's how you got his name, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq.
MashaAllah, excellent. Well done to you. 73 out of the 80 got the correct answer. And a few of you went for the others. Correct answer was Abu Bakr radiallahu an. Now the final question for today and the final question for this week's Qur'an story time. Let's see how you guys do on this one. How did the Prophet ﷺ prove to the Quraysh that this journey was real? Aha, didn't quite tell you about this one. Let's see how much your knowledge is. Was it A, he described the location of the lost camel? B, he described what Masjid Al Aqsa looked like? C, he described how he drank from some of the water fountain and containers? Or was it D, all of the above? So how did the Prophet ﷺ prove to the Quraysh that his journey was real? Was it A, he described the location of some of the lost camels on the way to Jerusalem? B, he described what Al-Aqsa looked like in detail? C, he described how he drank from some of the water containers on the on the back of the caravans? Or D, all of the above? And you've got another 3 seconds to answer this question before we close it. 3, 2, 1. And we've got a bit of a split audience here, Ustad.
Oh, we got them, Ustad, after. It was a trick question. It's all of the above. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ drank from some of the containers. The Prophet ﷺ described what Al-Aqsa looked like in vivid detail. And the Prophet ﷺ told the Quraysh about where some of their camels had been lost. So we tricked them, Ustad, after, but still majority of them, 59%, got it right, alhamdulillah.
Technically, all of them got it right because there's at least one of them.
Yeah, I guess so. But that was a bit of a tricky question, wasn't it?
Cool. Okay, so look, Jazakallah khair. Well done, everyone. So we've got about 3 or 4 minutes to answer some of your questions. And whilst we do that, we just want to let me stop sharing the questions. We do want you to just finish off by just telling us how many people are watching this particular session. Some of you have joined with 1, 2, 3, or 4 people. So we'll just put that question up. You can answer that in the background. But let's go to some of the raised hands and answer some of your questions. And we're going to try and squeeze as many as we can within 5 minutes to start. So it's a speed answer. Let's go to Abu Bakr and Umar first. Abu Bakr, Umar, what's your question, please? Come off mute. Oh, you've gone. Let's all go over to Salahuddin. Salahuddin, what's your question, please? Salahuddin, accept the prompt to unmute. Oh, try again. What's your question, Salahuddin?
Why did the Muslim leaders, does the Muslim leaders even care about Palestine?
What a heavy political question. Yeah, so that's a long question. But in short, the Muslim political leaders from the different countries, they are mainly only worried about one thing, which is protecting their own positions. Remember, most of the Muslim countries are ruled by kings, or dictators, military dictators. So they're not particularly worried about what's happening to Palestinians. Their main worry is to protect their own position.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Let's move on. Ariana Ibrahim, accept the prompt to unmute, please.
So I don't know, how do the Palestinians have such massive faith?
Very good question. How do the Palestinians have such massive faith, especially the Muslims in Gaza? They keep on.
Oh, you're gonna mute Ustad. Ustad Sahal, yeah, just unmute yourself. Yeah, you're back with us now.
So they keep on showing their resistance, however much they suffer. And one of the reasons is the Qur'an. Gaza has the highest concentration of huffaz in literally the whole of the Muslim world, even though it's a small area of land. Yeah, you can get from one end to the other in like half an hour, but they have a very high concentration of huffaz, and their strong connection to the Qur'an is one of the main reasons of their very strong faith.
Yep, Jazakallah khair. Let's go over to Lana. Lana, accept the prompt on me, please.
I thought that Abu Lahab was the Prophet ﷺ's uncle, not Abu Jahl.
The Prophet ﷺ had many uncles. Some of them were his enemies, like Abu Lahab was his strongest enemy, and Abu Jahl. But other uncles, they actually believed in the Prophet ﷺ, like Hamza radiallahu an, and Abu Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ also. So don't forget, they are big tribes and big families. The Prophet ﷺ had so many uncles. The Prophet ﷺ's father, Abdullah, he had 9 other brothers. Yeah, 9 other brothers. So all of them are uncles of the Prophet ﷺ.
Yeah. Excellent. Hannah, accept the prompt on mute, please.
Is it true that the Palestinian people are eating like everything around them?
It's true that the Palestinian people in Gaza have run out of food and water, not just food, water as well. And one of the reasons is that Israel bombs things like bakeries to prevent them making any bread or even having any food. So they are pretty much run out of food now. Yeah, and there's no nice way of saying that. And you know, Israel's blockading Gaza, so no food can actually get in.
Okay, let's go over to Samar or Samar.
Why did on the first slide, why did it show 3 different languages, Arabic, English, and what was the last language?
I think it was Hebrew, maybe. I'm not sure. I looked at that and I couldn't see it too well. It may be that was, you know, the different languages which are spoken in Palestine at that time. It's a good question, and I would like to actually research that a little bit myself. But it could be because those were the different languages spoken in Palestine at the time. Good question. I don't have a really 100% answer for you.
Okay, very good.
Okay, thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Let's go to Adam. Adam, what's your question?
I've heard that Israel want to put a bomb on Masjid Al Aqsa. They want to like completely level it, but wouldn't that also destroy the wall that I can't remember what it's called, but they have a wall that's special to the Jews, but wouldn't that also destroy that? And that's got importance to the Jews.
Yeah, so they do want to destroy Masjid Al Aqsa and they want to rebuild. And that's not me saying that, that's the Israelis themselves. They have museums where they have architectural plans, models. They would like to rebuild Suleiman's temple in that site where Masjid Al Aqsa is, but they're not going to bomb it. That's highly unlikely. What they have been doing for a long time is tunneling under Masjid Al Aqsa to weaken the foundations, to try and make it collapse by itself. They also ban renovations in certain parts of Masjid Al Aqsa, so over time it gets older and older and older. Trying to bomb Masjid Al Aqsa would be a very provocative act that would lead to a lot of anger around the Muslim world.
Okay. Let's go over to Dawood Musa. What's your question, please, Dawood or Musa? Accept the prompt on me.
Were the Quraysh and Banu Israel very close?
Very, very good question. Banu Israel, they developed a very close friendship with the Quraysh, and in the Madani period, they actually caused some of the wars against the Prophet ﷺ. So at the Battle of Uhud and the Battle of Khandaq, they actually went to the Quraysh and they kind of financed them, and it provoked them to start a war against the Prophet ﷺ.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Let's hear from Zayan and Ayan. What's your question, please? Come off mute.
What's the reason for Israel to bomb Palestine?
It's very simple: to take the land. That's it. And you can only do that in two ways. Either you force the people out of the country, or you kill the people. There's only two ways you can take land from a people who already live there, and it's really as simple as that.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Let's hear from Ayana. Ayana, what's your question, please?
How do the Israelis kill the Palestinian Jews as well?
Good question. Very good question. They did not kill Palestinian Jews, but they are known to be treated very badly. So Arab Jews are known in Israel to be treated very badly, but they were not kind of killed and forced out. That would be an exaggeration. That doesn't happen. I'm not aware of that happening, but I do know they are treated very badly.
Okay, good. Jazakallah khair. Let's hear from Hajran. Hajran, what's your question, please?
Will we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the last day of judgment?
Very good question. Will we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if we make it to Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enter us all into Jannah and protect us from the hellfire. You have to say Ameen. Yeah, Ameen. So in Jannah, when everyone has enjoyed everything and is just in pure delight and bliss and happiness, on the day of Jummah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will call all the people of Jannah not to pray Jummah, because there's no more prayer anymore. Allah will reveal himself to all the people of Jannah on a Friday, and everyone will be looking at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from one of those people who see Allah on the day of judgment or in Jannah. And if you want to be in the front line to see Allah, you're going to make sure on Jummah, especially the men here, you are in the front line of Jummah. Okay?
Okay, good. Jazakallah khair. Let's hear from Salma. Salma, what's your question, please?
When did the kids die?
When children can die at any time, isn't it? Children can die at any time, but we can take a lot of hope from the fact that if children of believers die, they are looked after by the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam in the hereafter.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Nusayba. Nusayba, what's your question, please?
How did the Palestinian children have food and drink whilst all of it is very poisoned?
They don't really have much to eat or drink. There are some lorries of aid which get through, and there is a very famous video of someone from the Egyptian side made a hole in the wall and was passing loaves of bread through. So there is some food there, but not much, and for a long time now it has run out.
Ismahan, what's your question, please? Oh, sorry. Come off mute again.
Yes.
What's your question, please?
So my question is, who built the Dome of the Rock?
Who built the Dome of the Rock? Very good question. It's always been there. Yeah, it's something natural from the landscape. You know, it's like it's sort of like a mountain, not really a mountain, like a hill, Temple Mount. So the dome, the actual Qubbatu Sakhra, the rock itself, is a natural part of that. But the actual dome around it, the golden dome, that was built by one of the Khulafa, one of the Umayyads.
Okay, good. Let's Shifa, what's your question? Shifa Maryam Sophia Waqas, what's your question, please? Accept the prompt on mute. No? Okay, let's go over to Zahra. Zahra Afraha, what's your question, please?
Why did the Palestinians in Masjid Al Aqsa had to die?
Not specifically in Masjid Al Aqsa. They are often kind of persecuted throughout Palestine, in the West Bank, in Gaza especially. So it's not specifically they're being targeted in Masjid Al Aqsa. Could be anywhere.
Okay.
Should we wrap up soon, Ustad Akhtar? What do you think?
Yeah, I know. We have to get for Salah. Just got a few. I'm going to hear from a few we haven't heard before. Abu Bakr, what's the question? Abu Bakr? Abu Bakr Umar from Edmonton, what's your question?
Maybe it's old. Yeah.
Okay. Zayan and Zuwaina, what's your question, please?
How can we help the Palestinians?
Very good question. Very good question. One very important thing is we need to learn as much as we can about their struggle, and we need to explain to people why it's so important we support the Palestinians. That's the most important thing. We need to make dua for the Palestinians, make a lot of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect them. And we need to donate sadaqah to the charities which do get aid through to the Palestinian. There's a few charities which are known to have bases on the ground where they can help the Palestinians. So very, very good question.
Yeah, very good. And don't forget everyone making your dua. Very, very powerful, especially from you guys, inshallah. Look, we're going to pause there because we've taken a lot of questions. I know some of you have. We've kind of like heard from, I think, pretty much everybody. And now you've got another question on top of that. But we do need to finish so we can go and pray Isha, inshallah. We want to thank you all for being here. Thank you, Ustad Sahal, for delivering these two sessions. We're going to be back in the February holidays, inshallah. Just before Ramadan, we're going to have a Ramadan special. So look out for that, inshallah. And we hope you all will be joining us for that, inshallah. But you get now opportunity to come off mute, inshallah, and say your salams to us. Let's just make sure that you can do that. Here we go. So, salam alaikum, everybody.
Bye.